last week we started the fourth verse. Na karmana anarambhan naishkarmyam purushoshnute. He describes perfection here as naishkarmyam. Naishkarmyam means actionlessness. And then he says one doesn't attain that state of actionlessness by not non-performance of action. You don't reach that state of perfection which is described as actionlessness. You don't reach that state through non-performance of action. And then he says you neither attain that state by renunciation, nor by mere renunciation does one attain that state of actionlessness. As I clarified, here is an idea which is rather not construed, not understood. Other day, I had a book which I was trying to devour, literally trying to understand what was being said. That book in fact was a very old book. I remember how Swamiji used to say how his father used to shop for books in a pile of books. Perhaps it makes so much sense. You can just pick up a book based on the color of the side of the papers you get to see. So when you look at the book, if the book has become brownish, blindfolded pick it up, he used to say. It means something so wise, it's something which is very, it has stood the test of time, it's something that old, it's something so much wisdom perhaps is ingrained in it. The contrary is not true, but just a thumb rule, just to pick up. So this book I was holding is so frail, the pages, even if you were to flip a little harder, they will detach. It's so fragile, the whole book. And the book actually is excerpts of the spiritual sayings of the great thinker Khalil Gibran. Spiritual quotations or sayings of Khalil Gibran. And there were a couple of quotes which just you pause and you try to read in between the lines and just try and understand what is it trying to say. It is not that straightforward, it is not that easy to understand what they are saying, and it took the rest of the hour just to deliberate, and I was just trying to deliberate with someone and trying to understand, having applied myself and say, try to get another perspective to it, what it is, what are they saying. So it is not easy to understand anyone, and much more difficult to understand a great master because of the sheer disparity in the elevation of thinking. For that reason they say you must practice what is known as upasana. Upasana is you must be as close to a master to gain that perception, that wisdom. What are they trying to say? What are they conveying? That is a quality which is practiced. Now why I am saying all that is, here is a concept which is so misunderstood, so much so that you have lost the very essence of spirituality. Spirituality thrives on action. and he clarifies that concept, the subsequent verses to follow this verse, that you abandon action in the name of spirituality, you are abandoning spirituality itself. Remain inactive even for a moment. Everyone is made to act helplessly. Avasha. The word helpless means avasha. Helplessly, indeed, by the qualities born of prakriti. Prakriti by nature. Something seems to be qualifying your actions. First, he say, in fact, he's saying two things here. What are the two things he's saying?
Cannot be without action.
First thing he says, none can remain even for a moment without performing action. Why? Why none can remain even for a moment without performing action? Vaishnavi, any idea? No idea. She is very quick to give up. Mind is? Mind can never take rest. Mind is constantly thinking. Why do you think mind is forced to think? You're right. Because the mind is that keeps you active. But why is it that the mind is so active? What makes your mind so, perhaps a cause of disturbance? I see a lot of disturbance in that when you say that. I sense it. I may be wrong. What makes your mind so not just active, hyperactive? It's like a child, restless, running here, there. You know? So it is the vasana. So in fact, in a familiar term, we can say it's the desires. So it is the vasanas or the desires in us that will constantly force you, compel you to act. In fact, I do not know whether this chapter or in the elsewhere he says, even Krishna says, I have no obligations, but if I choose not to act, everything will complete chaos all over, he says. The fourth chapter, this chapter, correct. So Krishna, he says, even though I have no obligations, but even I choose to act, he says. So in that context, it's not, you can't say that Krishna also have vasanas and desires. You can't imply that, you can't gather that. But from our understanding, you can understand what compels you to act is a vasana. What you also got to understand is, if you choose not to act, what will happen? If at any time, at any stage, one chooses not to act, what would happen? You would be at peace. And the peace is a different peace.
You feel bad that you didn't act when you should have acted.
So what is the price of tamas?
Lethargy.
Sorry? Always good? What is good? Lethargy is good?
In certain situations, like we overreact or react before it's necessary, we end up in trouble.
Correct.
If we keep quiet, we escape
Yeah, I get what you are saying, but my question is, what's the question, Hariji? What happens if you choose not to act?
It means you will continue to remain unfulfilled, that vasana will continue to not be exhausted, and therefore it will lead to further desire, further urge to act in another way.
Mind will be steady if you don't act. Everybody?
You will feel guilty for not doing that action also later, because you have done that action. There is a need. If you don't act, you I have not done it, I should have done it.
So, are we trying to get into a more subtle thing of in this question?
You can answer எப்படி வேணா answer பண்ணுங்க சார்.
No, like it is normally said when you get into the BMI, PFT, OET, that kind of thing. So all these actionlessness which you are talking of is at the B level, the B, the P, and the O.
They will wonder what you are talking. I can understand perfectly what you are talking.
But there is
Be charitable to them also.
But there is still an actionlessness or actions or desires at the other levels, which is at the mental level and the intellectual level. So
See, whether be it a physical action.
Only physical, it is not mental.
No, why do you say, sir? If you understand the gunas, the three mental temperaments, they are not physical states. They are called mental temperaments. So sattva, rajas and tamas are actually states of your mind. It is not a state defined by the physical body. It is a state of mind, but it reflects in everything that you do. It reflects in everything, and it trickles down even to the physical level because it is the subtle that controls the gross. The subtle is the thought, it governs the body, it governs the environment, it governs everything that you do. So it can actually, your entire personality is being color shaded by the constitution of these three gunas. Each one of you are appearing totally diverse and different is because of the different gunas. No two of you are the same, is because of the different gunas. And that's the mental temperament, it's not the physical thing. So I don't know where you are coming from, but when we talk of the gunas, it is a state of mind. Now, why we cannot remain inactive or compromise action is because the quintessence of life, what sustains life is action. What thrives, life thrives on action. If you choose, in fact the very next few verses is going to say, even to maintenance of your body you need to act. If you don't agree with me, for the next 6 months don't get into any kind of physical activity, and then you tell me what happens to your body. At the day you chose not to act, and the day 6 months later when you reconsider action, take a medical checkup after 6 months and just see what has happened to your body. And if you were to choose to neglect and continue, there a time will come, it will be a complete shutdown, it will be a natural decline. So it is not wrong to say inaction is literal death. What sustains life is action, and that is what he is saying. So the fundamental spiritual discipline is you got to be active. It starts at the physical level first, and you can't keep that, out it goes. So why should you consider action? Because action is the very life thread, it sustains life. So you can say in the previous verse, as he said, you got to maintain action because it is that which ensures you are addressing the very root cause of imperfection, which is the vasana, because vasana-lessness is perfection. You want to get there, you will only get through action. Please remember that. He established that in the previous verse. Now here he is saying nobody can remain inactive even for a moment, so please don't quote action, inaction rather, sorry. Now and then he says everyone is helplessly indeed, everyone is compelled by the qualities born of Prakriti. Now bring a little bit more clarity here. I have been in this field close to 30 years, thanks to my vasana for philosophy, vasana for Vedanta. Agree, sir? Without the vasana I can't be in this, neither can I continue in this. This is what I am. So you can very clearly say it is the vasana that defines me. So it is the vasanas in you that defines you. Some of you, perhaps for the past 40-50 years, you have been a businessman, or you have been a trainer, or whatever, because of your vasanas. So I am trying to drive home the second point he's making. The first point we all said is in fact he is clearly making 3 points, you can say so. The first, he said you can't remain inactive for a moment. Second, all your actions are driven by vasanas, means vasanas determine only the field of activity. Now I have been in this particular field for what reason? Why I have been in the same field for the past whatever number of duration I mentioned? My vasana. But I can guarantee you, I am not the same what I was when I started. I am not the same 20 years ago. I was not the same 10 years ago. I was not the same 5 years ago. I was not the same last year. I am not the same person what I was a week ago. I will not be the same in the future. But yet I have not changed the field of my activity. Correct? Are you following, Vaishnavi? The second point is saying you are going to be in that field because of your vasana. I will be in this field till my death. Till my deathbed I will be in this field. Nobody can take that away from me. That is my vasana. Then how is it that I am not the same? Then what is it that is changing in me?
Because of the action. And because of the action, the refinement is taken.
Yes, the action, there is a certain refinement or a change. What is that refinement or change measured with? What is it that determines the change in me, which is the same everywhere, everyone?
Your intellect.
Sudhakar Garu, Sudhakar Senior. You are junior or senior or Sir, the topic is not of the intellect, sir. We did mention the word intellect in the question when she asked, but in the context we are not talking about intellect. We are talking about 3 things. One is action, you cannot refrain from action. Second one we are saying is it is the vasanas that determine the field of activity. Why was I not a businessman? Yema, why was I not a businessman? Because I had no vasana for it. As simple as that. So it is the vasanas that determine the field you are in. The point 3 we are saying the change that has happened in me is because of the gunas, not the intellect. The nature of the action you perform in that chosen field changes because of the proportion of the gunas changing constantly. Even that you are helpless. Are you following, Rajima? So the gunas is that true flavor of a person. The true reflection of a person is in the gunas. Vasanas, what's the big deal? So you are not determined, your spiritual growth is not measured by the field of activity, it is the modus operandi in the field that you get into. That is it that determines the spirituality in you. It is not the field of operation. The field of operation is what is a big deal. But you will say the fact that I am engaged in this field itself makes me spiritual. I don't think so. I don't think we can just by being engaged in this field I can be spiritual. Not really. Nothing great about talking on the Gita. Nothing great in being philosophical or being in a philosophical realm. It is how I have operated. How am I operating in that field? That is more important. What do you mean by quality of action?
You could do an action which is not good or very good, etc. So I take this one. So when you say you perform gunas, does it mean the quality of the action? I mean, like for example, I want to be a sportsman. That's my vasana. Now I could do it in a proper fashion or not be very good at it, or be very good at it, depending on how much effort I put in. So that is the guna.
You mean to say you have polished your talent? Talent again?
One talent is what, which is in a way innate, can be learned. Other thing, amount of perseverance you have, and are you doing it in a very scientific manner or not? So those will ensure how much you succeed. So that to me becomes the guna. So how refined you become. So you say you lose guna, then you become more and more refined. So the quality of your action is what is guna.
Gunas in fact means the qualities, and you are putting it in your own way. I give it to you. So what really defines an action is not the field of activity, but the nature of action, or the quality of action. What is the quality of action? What are the flavors of an action? Are the three gunas: sattva, rajas and tamas, which we are very familiar with. We should be quite familiar in this classroom. So it is so what guna you bring into that action? Tamo guna, rajo guna or sattva guna. That determines, he is only saying. But action should not stop, sir. Make sure the action goes on. You will be in your field of vasana. What keeps changing is the proportion of the gunas. That's all keeps changing. Don't tamper with this principle. If you tamper with this, then you are going into a wrong assumed path of spirituality. You can't. You've got to ensure you are in the field of your vasanas. Well, just for benefit of one or two people, quickly let's describe what these gunas are. What is the lowest is tamo guna. What is tamas? One by one, anyone can give one quality. Tamas is laziness. What else is tamas? Pleasure loving. Operating from a field of no gratitude. Would you call that tamas?
Greed is a tamas.
No, I didn't say no. I am only asking her, is it? Huh? Being greedy is rajas. Tamas, you can say, yeah, an attitude of no thankfulness, ingratitude. Jealousy comes into rajasic state. What else is tamas?
All the bad
Indulgence.
Tamas is not self-centered.
Tamas is anything which is centered in the body.
That's something new I am hearing. Engendu kondu vandinga? Chinmayananjiya?
Inadequate understanding of children.
Parvale. Very well put it. Centered around the physical body.
Therefore, the rajasic would be more controlled, and then this sattvic would be more intelligent. So it could be more gross, less gross, and more subtle.
You can say that the hierarchy of subtlety is greater when you go from tamas to sattva, but as we said, it is the state of mind which reflects in everything. Sattva can be reflected at the physical level, sattva reflects at the mental, at the rajas reflects at the physical level, tamas also rejects at the physical level. So you may compartmentalize, I know where you are coming from, but being generic, tamas is laziness, pleasure, what did you say? Pleasure lovers, you said ingratitude, where lethargy, you did mention procrastinating, just to postpone things, and it comes very, very naturally. When you postpone something which has to be done, it keeps hurting you within, but because of your tendency you postpone it. If the tamas is more pronounced in you, it is very well reflective in things not being attended to when it need to be done. It need to be done, but it is not done because of your nature. Your guna starts reflecting. Postponing things. What else is tamas? Indulgent, you can say so. Sensual, indulgent. Sloth, ignorance, correct, very good. Ignorance also is tamas. And the bliss that arises out of ignorance also is tamas. Ignorance is bliss, as they say. So, if people who are blissfully unaware of many things in life and they find themselves very contented, sorry to use the word, that pig's contentment also is tamas. Their life. Oh, I am very contented with life. It is not sattva, it's tamas. In short, tamasic fellow. And sir?
Very high degree of tamas.
High degree of tamas. So, extreme tamas is sleep, inaction. Today I got up at 4 o'clock and again went back and slept. I got up at 6:30 because my health was not permitting. I felt so sick with myself for not getting up, believe me or not. Within me I was very uncomfortable.
Tamas took over.
Because of health, it is tamas. Sir, every human has tamas in you. I am just trying to share something which is so, this morning, if that you wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to, but if I chose to, but I didn't feel happy over it because of my health I couldn't. I said, okay, never mind. But the tamas in you draws you to sloth, draws you to sleep, draws you to inaction, draws you to procrastinating, indolent, lazy, lethargic, reckless attitude. To be unmindful of your actions is tamas.
Tamas is mostly reflected in the biological aspect of the human. It is absolutely not much of a concern with the mental attitude, but it is mostly reflected in the physicality of the human.
You may be saying because it is perceived, but as thinkers, as transformers, we are more interested in the root, not the effect. See, I get what you are saying. What he is saying is tamas seems to be more reflective at the physical, but doesn't really matter at the thought level. Sir, any transformation happens at the internal level, not the external. So even if I may whip you up and say get on to action,
It is visible in the
yes,
physicality of the body.
yes, that is very evident. What you are saying is evident.
Just like sleeping, just like working, just like sitting up.
And that is very evident, but that doesn't mean the transformation shouldn't happen at the thought level, it should happen there. In fact, everybody says healthy body, healthy mind. Even the Prime Minister was saying this, healthy body, healthy mind. I almost thought I must write a letter to him and saying, small correction, dear Prime Minister. It is not healthy body, healthy mind, it is what it is.
I think if body you express it in biology, all the three gunas. Why only tamas?
You work with the
See,
body.
every aspect of you only through expression, you say what you are.
But in tamas it is more.
No, that's
Even Rajas
where
is
we are
very
now. If it is there, even Rajas very much.
You are all the time acting.
By saying what I am saying is correct, I am showing my Rajas.
Little sattva came and helped him that time.
So all the qualities you reflect only through your expression.
The expression
Yes.
is
Through
the body
biology,
only.
definitely through your physical expressions, there is no doubt.
I think what means to say is that if you are right, if you are very tamas in your mind, that's how it starts, then you will be actions are very different and it reflects more that way. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how it's perceived more.
It is a general concept. As a concept, we think tamas means
It is, and it is far more to it. So today perhaps you can see a broader perspective to it. It reflects in everything that you do, you know, everything that you do, the food, the choice of food you eat, you know, everything. It is tamasic. If you are late to meetings or anywhere you are late, it's tamas.
If I were to quantify, I mean, just to understand it better, if I'm lying down, one could say if I'm expressing my tamas, guna, whatever. But if that lying down happens to be a shavasana, then it is rajas. So it's the same action but different state.
Yeah.
So I can't remove the action alone to say what exactly happened.
Ultimately, everything is born out of the mind.
Everything is bound to the mind. Yes, that's what we are saying. Yes, Lata, I think you are saying something. Okay.
proportion changes.
That is what changes, which is what I did mention. You can be in a field for a period or rest of your life, but what changes is the proportion. So tamas, we have said what we have said. Rajas is, what is rajas? In the Somyama, you said couple of things. Rajas is greed, somebody mentioned, jealousy, anger, any of those emotions which are violent in nature, aggressive in a different sense. You want to, sorry, fighting spirit,
Passionate, ambitious.
passionate. I wouldn't use the word ambition here because ambition is always qualified as sattva. Passion is exactly the opposite of ambition. Passion is desire, desirous, craving, an obsession, which results in a frenzied action. It results in an action which invariably disturbs your mental equanimity. It hurts your mental balance. It tests your mental patience. So it just rocks you. It unsettles you. So rajas is a state where your mind is agitated. It becomes restless. It is affected. It has lost its peace. But you are active, though. But the mind is agitated. You see, the mind gets disturbed by anything. That's rajas. So, but what you find is a rajasic person is very active. So, what drives him into action? What drives a rajasic person into action? Yes, but what is it? Why does it get hyperactive? Why is it that he is rushing? Vasana is not wrong to say, vasana, ama. It is the self-centeredness or the desires that drives egoistic desires. The egoistic desires, the self-centered nature of the desire drives a rajasic person or a person into action, and whenever your actions are egoistic and self-centered by nature, will invariably lead you into mental accidents, mental agitation, because you are trying to you're getting into a conflict with the world because of your own ego, and that bombardment, when things boomerang back on you, it agitates you, because the world is not sitting quiet to take your ego. It's going to bounce you back with interest, and that can't settle you with peace. So you just get rocked. It hurts you. So the world is not submissive to you. It's just going to give back with interest to you. So realize that you want to get along with the world. Put your ego aside and enter. You can't enter the world and say, I will start bossing and dictating my way of style of functioning to the world and better listen to me. The world is not going to listen to you. And when do you realize that? When you have lost your own peace and happiness. You cannot get into the world with a thought that I will dictate and tell it how it should function. It is not meant for that. The world has a pattern of its own. It will not. The only way you will have to get out is by putting aside your ego. So, a rajasic person gets into that phase where he is often agitated, he is often restless, he gets himself worked up. So, he is active though, but the difference you got to mark between a rajasic and sattvic person is what prompts that action. A rajasic person is prompted by desires with his ego and self-centeredness that results in his mental agitation. And just to mention, tamas, it is said it gets into heat of manifestation after sunrise, sorry, after sunset, I am sorry, after sunset to sunrise. As you did mention, indulgent. Any indulgence is only after sundown. Other day I was sitting at the desk at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I was doing some studying, and my father came and asked, shall I lock the main door? You remember that? I told him, I don't have any vasanas to go out at this hour.
He's always like that.
I have always been like that. Ask him. At 8 o'clock, the main door is switched off, locked out, the lights are switched out, the house is dead for the world. I remember saying that comment to him. It is by nature, there is nothing great about it. What I am trying to say is, if there is that vasana in you to lead an indulgent life, you will, the tamasic people are active at that hour. Rajasic person, rajas is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you want to put a time to it, perhaps 6, 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. is tamas, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is rajas, and that sattva, whatever is there, it expresses from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Now, what is sattva? Sattva is again a state of mind reflecting in everything. Sattva is a state where your mind is balanced, calm, tranquil, very contented, very happy. Correct. Rajasic, we didn't mention that. Rajasic fellow is never contented, always unhappy. Trademark of a Rajasic fellow. So, if you are complaining about something in life, that is a trademark, you are Rajasic or you are in Rajasic state. Tamasic fellow is not woken up yet, nothing to complain. As we said, tamasic fellow is a bliss, he is reveling in his bliss, ignorance is bliss. Rajasic fellow is full of action and he is complaining that things are not going his way. As I have said, you are complaining that things not to my satisfaction. Things can get better. Yes, certainly can things get better, but there is no reason you should complain about it and make a hell of your life. Nothing around you is perfect, including me, but that does not mean I go about complaining of everything in life, isn't it? It is impossible to find a perfect society or a perfect world or a perfect you. A long way to go for me to find perfection, but that does not mean I complain about it. The moment you take that pessimistic side or to only highlight shortcomings or imperfections in society or individuals or people or situations, you are Rajasic state. It is not going to give you any peace of mind, it is not going to make you any contented or happy. And the moment you are able to find that contentment or that state of peace or tranquility or poise while you are active, it is sattva. And the thumb rule you must keep in mind is, you can only find that peace and contentment in the garb of action, not by abandoning action. You got to find that while you are active. You can't do that by abandoning action means or resorting to inaction. You cannot. For a person who has no vasanas, understandable, or very less vasanas, he is in that state, understandable, but not for you and me. If you heard the first point what we said here, you cannot remain even for a moment without action. Why did we say that? Why is it that one cannot remain without performing action? Why? Because you all have vasanas. So please respect that composition of your personality. You have vasanas, so you cannot abandon action. So your job, your target, your purpose or approach to life, to inject spirituality into your life, is to bring in that peace and poise and contentment while the action which has been flowing from the day you were born, because that has not changed, that will not change. My swadharma will not change. Swadharma is what my nature is. I will be what I am rest of my life. But what will change is the proportion. And it is said your real transformation is in the measurement of sattva. It is the sattva in you that really measures how spiritual you are. And many a time we are actually cautioned. It is many a time it happens, tamas mocks sattva. A tamasic fellow also is unconcerned. A sattvic fellow also is unconcerned. A tamasic fellow also is undisturbed by the world. A sattvic fellow also is undisturbed by the world. A tamasic fellow also is blissful in reveling in bliss. A sattvic person also is reveling in bliss. But that acid test difference between tamas and sattva is no action and action. All that. That's acid test. Isn't it? So it is what we got to understand is, just because you have a vasana for something doesn't make you a non-spiritual, doesn't make you a spiritual. It doesn't define that way at all. So you could be a businessman, but yet you can bring about the refinement in you into that field of activity. You can be a very sattvic businessman, or can be a very tamasic Vedantin. Huh? Tamasic Vedantin means the tamas in that person is so pronounced. Or I couldn't be a Rajasic Vedantin. Illingla?
But how does one get realization about his Rajasic quality? Unconsciously he goes on blaming, he goes on complaining, the day it comes out. Whenever we are driving a car, you know, when we see the traffic, the fellow has come like this fellow has come like this, see that fellow. So that type of thinking basically happens very well. And how do we realize that we are Rajasic and how to come upon it?
So they say the first process of learning is a realization, or it comes with an understanding. So you may know it, first of all you may not know it.
It is becoming part of life, so every day, you know, we go on comparing to life from the morning to the evening, because every single aspect, wherever we go,
Right.
we don't compromise. So whenever we see something, you know, we don't compromise, it's like this, this, like this. But life has become how to come out of it, just I am asking. How the realization comes.
It's a purely an inward awakening, I would say. It's subjective, and that is directly measurement to the realization or of the knowledge or the understanding. And it only, what triggers that knowledge or understanding is opportunities or exposures like this, satsangs like this, because this is a mirror to your inner personality. It just gives you a clear picture as to who you are, what you are. So the more we take these ideas and introspect and reflect further and take a measure of where you are, perhaps that's when a little clarity comes into your own life, in your own actions, your thinking. Then perhaps you can start taking the corrective measure. However slow it could be, but it only starts with a point where you start measuring your own actions against the backdrop of this knowledge.
I think that is where the spirituality plays a very important part.
Absolutely. You can't, it is like a compass to a mariner.
Otherwise, it's like only you are cleaning the glass, thinking the dust is there only. You are going on cleaning the glass, not
Inside.
reflecting.
How early this can be identified?
How early can these gunas be identified?
A child also can be identified.
It is very evident from very young age. It only a parent needs to have an understanding to be able to look at the child from this angle. It's very easy.
Because this will be a great assessing tool for a church. People to recruit. They identify this in the when they can accordingly job profile their defense.
Absolutely.
So does it mean that a person with a more guna will not lead a life at all? He couldn't be having all the qualities. So how to balance?
No, it's not a question of balancing. Every individual has got all the three. Every individual is actually, they say, is an essential composition. Every human has got all the three. So what is different is the proportion. So at a certain initial spiritual journey, one could have, let's say, 70% tamas, 25% rajas, 5% sattva. So as you slowly start addressing, then slowly the rajas starts increasing, sattva little by little, and tamas starts reducing. So it is that slowly gradual shift in that proportion. So it's not a question of balancing, it's a question of trying to consciously increase the sattva in you. So our life's efforts must be directed to enhancement of sattva, and when that keeps increasing, automatically the other two in proportion keeps changing.
So like he said, when we face such flows in the road, we have to increase our sattva to, or we have to have more patience to see that. That's it.
It calls all of us to behave that way. But again, yes, you have to accept that and understand there will be people, because of them you are more alert,
And see if you can do something about it.
if you can.
So I think this is called living in the confines of your own perceptions. That matter the most.
Living in the confines of one's own.
Your own perceptions.
Okay.
For example, when you are driving a car, you are in complete control of accelerator, clutch, brake, steering, etc., etc., for being the integral important parts to reach your destinations and your co-passengers' destinations during the drive. Irrespective of external components like traffic, signals, police, etc., etc., where you do not have your control. If you feel these external factors are impediments restricting your travel, you will end up in chaos. You have to understand that they are meant for the smooth flow. If only you realize this basic example, everything becomes perfect. Don't worry.
Or
Is it a good example or not?
hire a traffic driver, it should be fine. You don't need to do all this, just hire a
So
traffic driver.
just an example, when we go out into the traffic, when we go out into the traffic, if we see that signals are there,
Awaken the Krishna in you. That's all we need to do, isn't it?
now if we feel that all these things are impediment,
Hmm.
we cannot reach your goal at all. They have to make the traffic or travel smooth. We have to think like that.
are describing the traffic like a war madri. Lord Krishna drove the chariot in a battlefield. It's literally like a battlefield he is describing it.
Complaining has become a part of our life.
It's true.
Without knowing to ourselves. And we don't even think about it. But only thing is I am thinking after coming here. I started thinking about it.
Not to be disturbed by these, right, when things are not going your way, to have your calm and to accept the situation is to become more involved, be more sattvic. If you're rajasic, you'll get like that, you'll be getting angry, you'll be shouting at somebody, oh this fellow, and sometimes you'll jump the signal.
You're reactive.
You become very agitated when you face
We
something.
don't have any control over those
When
factors.
you don't have control, when you
So
have learned
naturally
to
we are
accept,
peace with them.
nice switch on to
So
nice
if you even not just this driving, but if you even
So there is only an example.
generalize or assess people, where would they basically fall? Majority of people fall in the sattva, rajas, tamas. In your own experiences, you encounter different situations, different people in the course of a day. Where would you classify most of the people?
Rajas and rajas.
Tamasic.
Rajas and tamas both are.
Rajas and tamas.
It's a very sad state of society.
So can I inform you when I get up?
If yeah, please.
Sorry, that joke.
Oh, sorry, I got it.
Because I think we are belaboring a point here, and we can keep discussing it till the cows come. It's an essential, but I think the fundamental issue here is that we are not living with your action as an action and as an end to itself. For a minute, if you just keep performing an action without thinking, what is this going to give me, what is it going to do to somebody else, if for every minute if you are going to think of cause and effect and the world outside and everything, then that is the fundamental thing that you are not happy with yourself. Once you are satisfied with yourself, you just keep working for the sake of working and enjoy the work. You will keep driving, enjoying the driving. You will not be bothered about all these things. Not that you will ignore them, but they will be there. And that is what happens when anybody tries to get into work. Why do you say immerse yourself in work? You are not saying that you will do nothing else in life except work. But while you are working, you are not thinking of other things. While you are driving, you are not bothered about how he is driving. You are taking it into account. So, this is what we are becoming too full of ourselves and too interested in discussing things, right? Rather than following the basics, which is just do your job. Your job is to drive. Now don't tell me why did I get a license? Why did my father not get me the license when I was 18 and got it at 19? Why all those thoughts? Right now you're driving, drive. Close the chapter.
I would use
It will solve a lot of things in life. You're going to work, go and work. Why are you bothered? Will it give me a promotion? Will it give? These are the things which affect the world.
No, why are you stopping him? I have no problem listening to him. I can't. He is supposed to talk. Let him talk, na?
No, but having said that, he talked more.
No, no.
No, but what I would like to say is, I think just as a response to what he's saying, I think all the external factors are there. So, I think we want to use the word satisfied. I think you have to accept the reality what it is, and then go ahead. Not satisfied, you're accepting it, and then going and doing whatever you want to make the improvement, etc. The tantric question comes when the acceptance comes without wanting to change anything. Whereas the other things come when you're accepting it and yet wanting to improve on it. And to me, that's where the difference lies. And the only way to have a peace of mind is that accept the reality and then try and solve it.
So that
Very
is
true.
called the living in the confines of your own perceptions.
Correct.
That matter the most. I take it in a different manner, they take it in a different manner, somebody else takes it.
No, I think you all talking the same language, or you're expressing it differently, but the understanding is the same. What you're saying is the same. But if one, as Harish said, and you are saying, if one gets into the beauty of an action, any action for the matter, just get into an act and just enjoy that act, give every possible merit to that course of action and just do it for the sake of doing it. It has to be done, it will be done, and eat the most what an action can give, because peace, as it is said, peace and happiness is in the performance of an action. So if an action is not giving you that peace, something has gone wrong somewhere, inside, not outside. Something within you, something has gone wrong, because it is that action that should give you contentment, that should give you peace and happiness. Purnam. Satsang plays a very, very pivotal role. Yeah, very true. Gives you that necessary lift in the direction. Very true. Okay.
I had a doubt last week. I wanted to ask you.
Please.
Because of the Krishna thing and we didn't have much time.
Don't blame Krishna now.
No, our topic was
Please.
different. No, our topic was
Yeah,
different.
I get it. No worries.
I didn't want to go back to that is the earlier class when you said that humans, the child, all other animals need to be told what to do, like condition them, whereas a child, a human being may not be, a parent may not tell the child to do this. What we often do is we try to tell our child do this, do that and all that. So in that context I was very disturbed after going home, I mean questioning my own parenting. No, it's not a question of how successful they are materialistically. I mean, I won't attribute that as any success or anything. But if left by itself, a child, do you think that it will have that acumen to absorb the good things from the environment? Like my granddaughter, for example, only if you switch on the mobile and put something, then only she will eat. So they have, I mean, she demands it. Otherwise, they say she will not eat. So the child demands that, and the parents are getting, they are playing to her tune. Like. So then, if you do not tell the child what is good or what is bad, or you wean her away from such habits, then how does a parent? What is a parent's role then in raising the child to tell the child what is good or bad? Is it not a part of parenting?
She is referring to a point we raised a couple of weeks ago. We said that parenting today sadly has come to a phase where it is literally being told what to and what not to, literally being told, in short, do's and don'ts. And we did mention that that is not an ideal parenting. An ideal parenting is to be an example and perhaps let them be given an environment where they can pick it up. But what she is saying is, if we do that, do they have the acumen to pick it up and transform themselves? May not be. What you got to do is at best create an ideal environment with you being the best example for them to consider you as a role model. Get that right first. In fact, many of us fall way short of that itself. So the real molding of a child, actually the action falls back on the parent to be an ideal parent, which is to be a perfect example. So let the child be given that best exposure, or right, the example for the child can look up to and consider you as a role model, to emulate you. But that alone may not serve. So along with it, give them understood that you are giving enough freedom for the child to do what he or she would like to do. Thirdly, you are always there to give a sense of direction, advice or help if sought, or even to intervene whenever you think is necessary to give an advice and direction, because without that the child can become licentious, means has the freedom to do whatever he or she wants. So what gives that discipline is the standards you have set, the value systems you have represented for all the child has come to know for, and once that is set, that by itself is a very tall ask for a child to emulate. Means it looks up to that tall personality. In spite of your best efforts, and the advice and the freedom given, if the child has chosen a particular life or chooses to be something other than that, you have got to respect that. Is the best you can. You can't force the child to do something. That's what it is. You know, you can't. That's the ideal way of molding. But the moment you force, it loses its influence. It's a matter of time. It will wane away. It will die. It doesn't have a say. It doesn't have a hold on their personality. So to answer your question, you got to first create that standard by you setting that standard yourself, not by saying them, but by living it. And thereafter, give an advice if sought, perhaps give your views and opinions wherever possible, but give them the freedom to choose. That's the best a parent can do. Oppose that, it is just keep. Correct.
Fundamental question is, I think the child bottom up. That does the child has acumen? I think to me that's important because in my view, the child really follows examples as you were saying, anchored by the environment, and we pick up that. I don't think that acumen comes in and that means that she will not accept a good example of the parent. I think any example of the parent, the child will become.
So it's important you set the right example.
So the child has the acumen to pick up what it observes.
Yes.
But environment also plays a very important
Definitely.
That's the environment.
home, not the home alone, picks up lot of outside.
So therefore,
What parents do, what the other children do, they pick up more of that.
no, not more of that. Therefore, you have to be such an influential personality in their lives by the sheer standards you have set from day one, that they weigh the pros and cons and fall back on what something they believe and they see it such a striking example.
But Guruji, what age will they have that discrimination?
It starts evolving right from very young age. So at a much younger age, there is a much greater protection by the environment itself. You don't let loose a child out into the world. So he is well protected under the governance of the parent. And it's not, when I say governance, it's not strangling, it's not putting a leash around a child and say you come along with me wherever I go. It's not that kind of a control. It's a general governance because of, you see, the governance is the standard plus the freedom. The child should always have the freedom to do, yet there is such a high standards of life or living that just the parent sets. So it has to be a mix of this. And when I say this as a parent, I know I fall way short of it. So it's not for me to complain what my child is or not. So it's for me, the accent falls back on me. So have I given the best in terms of a role model? Do that, and thereafter at a stage where they start choosing from what is beyond you, that's their choice.
If I can only add a little to what you said.
Please.
We can only be good role models for somebody and enact everything they will look up to and follow. And the other thing which we can do is to create a conducive environment. So if you create an environment where there is fights in the house, then you're bringing up the child in an environment of conflict. So you can only influence two things. One is your own behavior and the environment you have created.
Correct.
So if these two are positive. And the third thing is, a lot of us suffer also from the fact that we ourselves in our perceptions have attributed certain qualities to certain things. Like it's the mobile per se is not bad as long as we are using it, right?
It's true.
But the music, if this child wants to listen to music on the mobile while it's eating, that is bad. But when we want to listen to the music while we are eating, or the music is playing or the TV is playing, then that is not bad. So there is a lot of dissonance which comes in our own lives. So we have to also see what is the attributes that we have put.
That is what is the standards we have set. We can't tell a child, go to bed early, but I am watching a movie till late night, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
I want my child to sleep early, I must sleep early first. I can't tell her to sleep early and I am partying every other day. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. What is the term we use, Saita? They say can't be like a warden or
Principle, caste master.
or a specific term. Never mind, the principle has come out what we are saying. This is okay. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.